Money Vikings, what's going on? Money Viking G here. Sit back, relax. I got a good one for you today. I really do. This one is a little talk about the 7 biggest things that destroy middle class wealth. And this is coming from a article I saw in Yahoo Finance, and I'm going to kind of summarize it, the 7 things. And I'm going to talk about the Money Viking way within each of them that you can avoid making these mistakes and what people can do to avoid making these mistakes. So these are 7 things that the middle class does. One of them is totally out of their control in most cases, but we can mitigate the risk. But the others, I think, are in most of our control. And they're the mistakes that middle class people make, especially in America, when they are building wealth, and it basically makes them poor. Now, let's talk a little bit about poverty really quick, because there are about 40 million people in the United States that live in poverty. And wrap your brain around that for a minute, because this is supposedly the wealthiest country in the history of all humanity. And you have 40 million people that live in poverty. So that alone is pretty sobering, and we need to do everything we can to not be in that group. And hopefully we can help bring some of those people up. And hopefully some of those people can learn some skills to bring themselves up. But I understand some things are generational. There's a lot of reasons for poverty. If it was an easy thing to fix, it would have been fixed a long time ago, as we all know. So the first thing that I would say that middle class does to become poor is something we've talked a lot about at Money Vikings over the years. And it's simply not saving and investing enough. And everyone knows that. Everyone knows. You could ask even a poor person, what could you do to get out of poverty? And if they had steady employment, they would say, I could save money and invest money. Probably. I think most people know that. The problem is 95% of us are our own worst enemy. I've known very few natural savers who can actually have the self-control to push back on the constant advertising and consumerism that is absolutely ubiquitous within our system and our society. And they can actually push back on it, and they can actually still save without it being automated. And that's my main point. Jerry's one of them. He's able to save without it being automated, although he does automate. So the point being, I think 95% of people need to automate their savings and investments. And I would say, a good start is 5% goes into savings and 10% goes into investments, right? And if someone is just able to do that for many, many years, they will absolutely grow wealth. They will absolutely stay out of poverty. I think it's pretty clear that that would really help. People tend to have all kinds of strange time biases. They seem to think they have too little time, or not enough time, or it's too late, or I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it next year, or I'll do it in 5 years. They'll never do it. So it's just something that has to be done today. That's the bottom line. A person has to figure out how to call their bank and to say, every 2 weeks when I get paid, I want 5% to go automatically into a savings account, and I want 10% to go automatically into a diversified investment account. And just get it set up automatically, or through their employer. Just has to happen today. That's the bottom line. But that's the number one thing that probably results in most people in the middle class becoming poor. And again, this is based on the Money Vikings sort of ethos, that this is a middle class channel. This is a place where middle class people are talking about building wealth. This is not for the sports stars and the tech bros and the high income people that are either really, really good at something in their field, or they got very lucky and they had a big break in Hollywood. Hey, that's great. That happens to 0.001% of people. The rest of us in the middle class have to figure out how to build wealth within the income that we have and within the means that we have over time, which isn't a bad way to do it. It's actually there's a proven way to do it. So number 2, Another big way that the middle class becomes poor is they do not diversify their income. So you have to think of different ways to have income. If you're just depending on one job, and then the rest of your time is spent scrolling through TikTok and social media and doom scrolling and playing video games, then you're not going to have various forms of income. Now, income can be built and bought in different ways. You can build income by having a portfolio of dividend funds or dividend investments. Those can spin off a certain percentage every month or quarter, and that can be a source of income. Even something as simple as a CD can become income, a couple $100s a month, whatever it might be. And if you build many of those over time, you'll have various sources of income. Now, if people want to get more advanced, they can go into rental properties and REITs. They can also go into owning small businesses, a coffee cart, whatever. Other simple ones are driving for Uber or Grubhub or all these different, platforms where you can make a little extra money on the side, where you're not just depending on one job and one source of income. So that can also get us in trouble. So you got to keep that in mind. Multiple sources of income. When one falls off the wagon for whatever reason, we get fired, laid off, whatever, you have other at least sources coming in. You're not having to go into much debt. Okay. Number 3. Now this one is a little bit out of people's control. One of the biggest ways that the middle class goes into massive amounts of debt and becomes poor is through healthcare issues. Now, we can't control really, we can somewhat control, I guess, mitigating risk in terms of our lifestyle, moving, eating somewhat healthy, trying to get some fruits and vegetables in there, drinking water, getting 8 hours of sleep every night, trying to manage stress the best we can, moving, walking, lifting weights, trying to stay positive, building relationships with friends and family that are healthy. All these things do seem to point towards a longer health span, not lifespan. I think the important thing is health span. How long can you live and be healthy? But sometimes people do get, major catastrophe happens, hit by a car accident, cancer diagnosis, whatever it might be. And in America, a lot of people go into massive amounts of debt because of that, unfortunately. It's very sad. And that can cause problems. So what can we do to mitigate that? Again, you can try to focus on the health side of things, and then we can ensure and try to have good health insurance and do the best we can to find good health insurance that covers things and sets us up for success there and mitigates any bad things that might happen. Okay, number 4, poor investing choices. I see this one all the time at Money Vikings. People making poor investment choices. Getting fixated on one stock or one company, the next big thing, blah, 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 the meme stocks, etc. And not just having a solid, normal, balanced portfolio. S&P 500 index fund, bond fund, international fund, CDs, basic stuff that diversifies you and can get you through the ups and downs of the market and can grow your wealth. Poor investing choices are people that are going to take everything and throw it into a meme coin or a meme stock or whatever they think is the hot next thing. Hey, it's a gamble. Sometimes it works out, but 9 times out of 10, it doesn't. So that's another one. Okay, number 5. This is one we felt a lot the last few years. Inflation, not planning for inflation. You got to understand, your money in a savings account is losing money. You are not being safe by having your money in cash in a savings account. You're making like 0.01%. You're not keeping up with inflation. You're losing 3 to 4, 5% of the value of that money every single year in and year out, and it continues on and it will never stop. Okay? You got to plan for inflation. Check out some of the past videos at Money Vikings. We talk about inflation defense systems. We have all kinds of ideas to battle inflation. Okay? Number 6, not having a spending plan. This gets people in trouble. People have a bad time, they have a hard time in the day-to-day moment tracking and understanding how much they're spending. You gotta have, I call them basic budgets. In a basic budget, you just list the biggest fixed expense every month. You start with the biggest one and you go down to the smallest. And you just order it that way and you add all that up. And if you start with the biggest one, the rent or the mortgage, then the car payment, then the insurance, then the utilities, then the food, then the entertainment, then the clothes, then the gas, etc., etc., you're going to get to a point where you are basically going to have a very good idea of what it costs you to live your lifestyle that you're living at the moment. You'll get a big number down at the bottom. Let's say it's $7,000 a month. Well, you might find out you're bringing in $6,000. That's a major problem, and you're not going to build wealth, and you're going to be poor. That's the bottom line. Okay? And number 7, the biggest one, the last one where people in the middle class become poor is they underestimate retirement spending. This has been my problem with the FIRE movement. You know, it's pretty good, I guess, in some ways if people keep working. And most of these FIRE people that you see online actually continue to work. They just don't have a traditional job. They're doing blogging and YouTube videos, and they're making courses and all this kind of stuff. They're actually making money off of talking about all this stuff. So the bottom line is retirement spending, I would see a professional, someone who's going to really crunch the numbers with you and really help you to understand risk and see where you are at. You know, there's a lot of rules of thumb out there. One of the rules of thumb is if you have a portfolio of a certain amount, you can take out 4% a year for a very long time, and you will not run out of money. So that means $1 million portfolio will probably generate about $40,000 a year in income, and that will last a long time. You can take that out every year if you're in a diversified, that considers that you have your, maybe 50% in the S&P 500, 50% in bond funds, and you can basically run that out for 30, 40 years. But you got to run these numbers, you got to run these calculations, and you got to know the formulas. That's the important thing here, is to learn the formulas. 4% rule, the 25X rule, all that kind of stuff. All right, folks, hope this helped you avoid the 7 ways that the middle class can go poor. See you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.